Well, the Alliance for Extraterrestrial Diplomatic Contact, known as AEDC, is an international network of diplomats, politicians, government officials, experts in ET affairs, and interested people with a shared goal of welcoming ET civilizations to establish diplomatic missions on our planet. And their overall mission, greeting extraterrestrial civilizations. And Sylvain Rochon is the VP of Network Development of the Alliance for Extraterrestrial Diplomatic Contact, and he's joining us right now. Hi, Sylvain.
Hello, Dean.
How are you?
Pleasure to be here.
All right. Well, we had a long chat with Vidamore Elliott a little while ago, and I thought I'd come back and speak with you and go a little bit more in depth on what I asked Vidamore. So just basically, what's the purpose of the AEDC?
I would answer at this point in time, there's a primary purpose and a secondary one. And this is a shifting environment because the alliance is just a few months old. I mean, it's not even a year old. So there's still some changes, but fundamentally it was created as an alliance, hence the name. So a group of organizations that have similar goals to have an official, peaceful meeting with an extraterrestrial civilization, or two or three, or however many we can. But there are different approaches to this, right? There's different mindsets within the different organizations, and we knew this. But originally, the idea of the alliance came from the International Raelian Movement, who already has a project and an approach, which is to build an embassy and makes changes to the Vienna Conventions to allow for extraterrestrial civilizations to participate in diplomatic missions. And so there's all these mechanical and complex discussions that have to happen on the world stage. And because it's the founding or promoting organization that started the alliance, the alliance appropriated that approach as a start. But now that we have, I think it's 7 organizations, 2 more are coming in. Each one have a different angle. They like this one, they want to participate with the construction and all that stuff. But most of them are doing more grassroots approaches, but they all want the same thing: have peaceful contact and becoming part of a more galactic community. So we are accepting these other approaches and supporting them. So it's becoming a little bit more complex as far as our purpose, because we're adopting these subsets or these sub-purposes, if you would, within activities.
Right. Well, everything has got to start somewhere. Everything starts with a seed, an idea. So how are you being perceived by, say, like the mainstream UFO and the non-mainstream UFO communities, and I guess the general public? Are they taking you seriously?
It's been interesting because I'd say 2-3 years ago, it would have been very different. Mm-hmm. But now, in part, I believe it's because of the UFO disclosure discussions that have been happening, especially in the States. It's been quite positive. There's a lot of discussion. We have a lot of scientists that are not ufologists, but just physicists and and whatnot, that are I feel, at least they tell us, that they still are concerned to go deep into the subject, but it's become a point of argument and discussion that clearly is more okay than it used to be, and that's encouraging. General like the ufologists, I see 2 camps. Like there's the absolute skeptics that are like, show me proof and then we'll do something. Mm-hmm. And that's okay, and they're dismissive, generally speaking, because of that. It's like, show me proof first. And there's the other half that are like, okay, this is reasonable an approach because we don't know, and there's all these stuff that we study that we don't know where they come from. Yeah, maybe if we do this, it's got something else, some kind of outcome that would be favorable to our research would come out. So they're quite willing to discuss and engage. And general population, in a general, I'd say the majority of people in general population are favorable. They don't quite understand. Some people I say, well, you're inviting possibly aggressive ETs to come here. You have that.
Yeah.
But most are saying, well, like, we know there's life out there. Why not? I mean, they're not pro or con in most cases. They're just like, yeah, sure, you got it's not going to be my money. It's like, so you want to build something and do something, and great. I mean, if something some civilization pops in and says hi, that'll be amazing. It's gonna be so. That's the reactions we're having right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's really filled of dream stuff. We're talking about you're building something, and then they will come, but. How do you know an ET civilization will take up the invitation and come?
We don't know. That's why the analogy is correct. It's a bit of a field of dreams. But there is actual thought behind it. It's not just like, oh, let's build it and hope. The truth is, an advanced civilization that's able to cross the stars, they don't need us. They don't need our planet, our resources. If they come here, it's because they want to, and they're the ones that are going to decide whether or not they show their faces officially. We don't have any control over that at all. Like, they're just so way ahead of us technologically, and they have, in let's say in 1 or 2 generations, we'll have access to the whole solar system pretty easily and cheaply. And we know about exoplanets and things like that. We're also going to be in kind of that mentality, is like, as far as natural resources, heavy metals, anything like that, like, okay, it's abundant. They're like way past it, have access to whole solar systems. So the idea behind it is not just field of dreams. It's like, okay, we've had a lot of indicators from our history that we've been in contact with extraterrestrial civilization without absolute proof, tangible proof that we can put under the microscope, literally. But there's UFO sightings, crop circles, and pyramids. There's a lot of circumstantial evidence that kind of tells us, okay, an advanced civilization has been in contact with us over the years. So that's something that still needs to be proven. Which in fact, like Dr. Loeb, I don't know if you're familiar with the Galileo project. He started off. And that's kind of one of our first great attempts, tangible attempts to, okay, let's see if they are, and if these objects we see in the sky are ET origin and whatnot. So we're getting there in our mentality. But since these ET civilizations, assuming they are actually been visiting, and I and many ufologists and people in the alliance do believe that we're being watched closely or from afar. If I were them, that's the principal idea. I would be waiting until we wise up. Mm-hmm. It's not about building a structure like an embassy. They can come here and say, hey, we want to meet your leader, like anytime they want. We think it's like the zoo solution of crap, now I forgot the name.
Yep.
Paradox, Fermi paradox. Sorry.
Yep, the Fermi paradox. Yep.
They're watching and they're kind of observing. They don't have any reason. They don't need us. They don't want us for trade, but they're curious. But the only reason they want to contact us is basically a Star Trek First Contact kind of reason. Mm-hmm. Like, we're ready, and therefore, okay, like now we're going to introduce ourselves, and here's what's happening in the rest of the galaxy. So it's really all in their timeline, which means it's us and we need to do the work to seem like we are, and that we are ready, and coordinating to build an internationally accepted embassy with rules changed at the UN. That necessitates a lot of desire from nations and population to say, yeah, okay, this is real, this is valuable, there's value to this, let's do this. And maybe that indicates we're wise enough to observers from outside our planet say, okay, now we can actually meet them and they won't like freak out, and we'll be able to have a discussion. So that's the idea of it. So yes, field of dreams, but also there is some sociological thought behind it.
You mentioned Dr. Loeb. I'm thinking of people like Dr. Loeb. I'm thinking of people like Stephen Greer, who look at extraterrestrials as being peace-loving and wanting that same thing for us. Are these the type of people that you're attempting to communicate with? Because I've interviewed a lot of people that have the ability to contact and be in contact with ETs. I mean, people like that, are they the type of people that you really want to talk to about getting the inside track on what they're thinking?
Yeah, I mean, we are very open to all sorts of thinkers. We've like Dr. Loeb, with Dr. Greer, we haven't been in contact with those two specific persons. They haven't answered our emails yet. But we have been in contact with Danny Sheehan, who does a lot of work, and Steve Bassett, and Mark Sims and a bunch of others. Just had an interview this week with others that are a little bit more, I guess we'd call it more mystical minded or philosophical, like Karen Swain. And the truth is, like, there's a lot of stuff, there's an infinite amount of stuff that we don't know always, right? The universe is big and our capacity to understand is limited. So we keep our minds open about possibilities. And so we are open to all sorts of leaders and individuals that want the same, that have the same mandate that we have in their hearts, and we invite them to collaborate with us and to work with us. This is a not-for-profit. It was never designed to. It's designed for a purpose. I would call it a for-purpose business. It leads up to popularization, I suppose, of the idea of the embassy and official contact diplomacy, connecting with diplomats and things like that. So that's really where we're at. So, and that means everybody in the world that have that same mindset, that have that same wish, we'll talk to. And people that are influential in the spaces, like those you mentioned and others, yeah, of course, we want to collaborate with them, and they have their own vision of things, and we're respectful of that, and we want to support them. I'd love to support Dr. Loeb and his initiative, because that's really neat. And we have over 300,000 supporters now across 7 organizations and growing after less of a year of operation. So there's a lot of excitement out there about the prospect of peacefully meeting with an ET civilization.
You mentioned earlier about being careful not to attract the wrong type of ET with the wrong intentions. And 2 words I've learnt to use a lot since I've been doing this are benevolent and malevolent. So we hear about the number of different type of ET races that are out there, and in your literature on your site, you talk about extraterrestrial civilizations that have been observing us for some time. So do you receive counsel and information on the type of ET races that are out there, and which particular race would you really be interested in making first contact with?
Well, again, which one? We're not controlling that. But and we don't know how many. Like, different groups have speculations on like whether there's only one or there's a few, because opinions vary. We are interested in meeting those that want to meet us. So, and that's the only way we're going to have a meeting, is if they desire meeting us. It's not us that's going to knock on their door. So yeah, benevolent, yes. And it's like I even published an article a few years ago about this, like why I did a dissertation analysis to kind of figure out, well, is there a reason why an alien civilization would be malevolent and would come here with ill intent? And first you have to cross the hurdle of, what would malevolent be? What does it mean to us? Because an alien civilization may come here with positive intent for us and for themselves, and we may see it as malevolent. Like sometimes you hear about abductions, for example, but that to us that feels like a malevolent, right? Because you're kidnapping people for a while and dropping them back, and but for them it may seem like a benevolent thing. They're doing us a favor somehow or whatever. So there's a question of perception. But if we go beyond that and we just assume like goodness, generally speaking, or like attacking us to destroy us, like some of the movies in Hollywood insinuate, there's absolutely no reason except for religious zealotry then an alien civilization would come here with intent to be aggressive, because they need that. Planet Earth is not interesting. It's our civilization. We think it's important because we're part of it,
Right.
But it's absolutely uninteresting. At their level of technology, they can create robots, biological or otherwise, that are far superior than us to do anything they want. They can stay in their part of the universe and have, anything they'd like without bothering anybody else. And the resources of the whole galaxy is at their disposal. Why would they come to Earth and bother us while we're here? Like, most of the galaxy is empty of life. So that's, like, really in a short nutshell, that's why it would be only from ideological perceptions that an AT civilization would come here with malevolent intent. So long story short, we think, generally speaking, I can't speak for everybody in the alliance, but most of us think that there may be some malevolent aliens out there, or it could be just individuals, part of civilizations. Because they're like humanity. They're not. It's not a hive mind.
No.
Right. But civilizations in general, they come here and they observe because they're curious, or because they want to have eventually an interaction with us directly.
Yeah. We mentioned the word resistance, and then you talked about religion a little moment ago. I mean, are you getting resistance from any type of organization, from religious factions, for example?
No, actually, it's a bit funny.
Would you expect to get resistance if you suddenly started to grow and become very well established?
Well, I would. I mean, it's definitely not a purpose to threaten them. I mean, certainly not the. What I learned is, like, very religious people believe in aliens too. Their perception is, well, God created them as well, therefore they're part of the human family. And that kind of surprised me. That's not the organizations that tell me this. It's like the individuals, like the believers and whatnot. So I said, well, that's very positive. But yeah, if we gain a certain size and momentum, then it becomes organizationally threatening, perhaps. Then maybe we'd get some resistance if I don't know, people decide to become atheists because the alliance has popular ideas and whatnot. That's not our intention.
Right.
But it may happen. And organized religions, as you know, they have a lot of followers, they have a lot of money, the big ones. Yeah, they could become threatening. But I don't see that as a threat, at least not in short or medium term. We want to include people that are from all philosophies and organizations, because this is the whole planet deal. Like, imagine if an ET civilization arrives here for the first time officially, like showing up, hey, we're here, to everybody see. That's a seminal human moment for everybody. Doesn't matter what you believe. I mean, they're here.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's the idea.
Yeah. Sometimes I wonder that the resistance that's been put forth out there in declaring that UFOs and aliens are real has a lot to do with the history that has to be rewritten, and some the powers that be maybe just don't want that history written because it's too big a job.
There may be some of that. I think most of the resistance is in well, I guess it's connected to what you're saying is paradigm shifting, right? For the longest time, we would dismiss the idea of alien civilization ever existed, or exist at all. And if they do exist, because the idea among scientists, the idea of alien civilization has been around and accepted for a long time among scientists. But doing the math at the time, like in the 60s and even before that, they would do the math and say, well, yeah, there may be many advanced civilization in the galaxy according to Drake equation with assumptions and blah blah blah. But statistically, they'd be so far from us that it wouldn't matter, because they can't cross the stars. Today in 2021, I mean, we've learned about the universe, we learned about distances, there's theories, and even engineering plans are being started to be drafted up about a warp engine and faster than light travel. And not all of a sudden that this opens up a whole different discussions. Okay, they may be far, but all of a sudden, maybe in 50 years, they won't be that far anymore. Right?
Yeah.
For us. But if they're more advanced, then the speed of light being a limit of speed was something ingrained in scientists' mind for so long, so we can't ever cross that. Well, if you fold space and time, you're not challenging that limit anymore. It's like, oh, so it kind of changes the thought from the scientists, and now they're saying, okay, well, yeah, maybe they can visit here. Let's show proof now. So it's from a fun idea. It went from a fun idea to think about that really was important from the scientific point of view, and that became disseminated to the population. It's like, well, don't even worry about if they exist at all. Like, you won't ever see them in your lifetime. To now saying, yeah, maybe we will have contact with them and visit them and things like that. And the population saying, yeah, I believe the aliens are out there. Maybe they visit us, maybe not. But I believe, like, I think somewhere like over 80% of population believe there's alien civilizations out there. That's new. That's not.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's exciting for us.
Yeah. In individual countries, I would imagine, would be very guarded about what they know about ETs. The United States, for example. Have you approached individual countries to become part of this, or looking for some sort of endorsement for it? And would you expect a positive response? For example, if you went to the United States and said, listen, we'd love to share what we know about ETs with you, and we'd love you to share with us. I mean, you probably wouldn't get a very good hearing.
Well, in 2019, so that's pre-alliance, the IRM, the International Rallying Movement, contacted I think over 200 countries with us, with the embassy proposal, because that's their project that we carried into the alliance. And there were some responses. Some of them are still in discussion with us now, because the IRM is part of us. I mean, it gets a little bit sloppy because there's crossovers in organizations. I'm not privy to which country, because they keep it really close to the chest.
Yeah.
But there's at least 2 nations, I'm told, from the person that does speak with them directly. He's also one of the directors of the alliance, that are discussing about extraterritorial rights for the embassy and so on. So some nations have dismissed it, some have responded politely saying no, and others have responded favorably, and at least a couple are negotiating to be the country that will host the embassy. So that's work that's been done pre-alliance. Now, inside the alliance, we have our own little team in Geneva that approaches that discuss with the UN and kind of carries that from the alliance side of things. So we're carrying on that conversation, and by the end of next year, we hope there's going to be some movement on a convention to adopt new protocols for extraterrestrial diplomatic missions.
Right.
At the UN. That is the plan, and UN moves kind of slowly. We don't know if that's going to happen within that timeline.
Yeah.
But we've put in steps and had some responses also from the UN, even from the alliance. So there is discussions being made.
I was scanning through the website and noticed the type of person that you have on your list, and there are some very well endorsed and well qualified people on that list. How did you manage to get these people to accept and be a part of what you're building?
Well, some members of that list are carryovers from the IRM's work previous to the alliance. So we inherited a lot of that, which is great. Gave us a big head start. Some of them are themselves Raelians, so they are part of that organization. So it's natural for them to just support the project, because it's their project too. And but really, even after the alliance was born proper, like this is not a philosophical organization. And we've had a lot of great responses of support and requests to be put on the list from physicists and other individuals. Not many, like probably a dozen, maybe a little bit less. But there is an interest in this, and there's, it doesn't cause any harm to actually do this exercise. It engages, at best, it engages in lots of positive conversations and open-mindedness about the topic, and I know we're building that field of dreams kind of ideology, and perhaps it will lead sooner than later to an official contact. And that's what we get excited about. You have these prominent individuals that add themselves to the lists visibly, like, because we do tell their names fully.
Mm-hmm.
And they want to have that stamp of approval of this. We have a much broader, less public list that is much broader. We have political leaders on that list. We have other prominent scientists that don't want to be public, but that are there. There's quite a significant support from let's call them elites in their fields,
Mm-hmm.
Including politics. But in some of those areas, they're just not ready to go public.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that'll come with, with the idea being a bit more mainstream and accepted, and we're getting there year by year.
Right. So let's talk about the embassy itself. Have you decided, or has your group decided, where you would like to have it built?
Yeah. We know we want to build it in a warm place, so not Canada.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's a question of logistics, and we want people to be able to come and visit. And I got to be honest, a lot of people are uncomfortable with cold. So there's that, and it's also probably more comfortable for whoever's going to visit as well if the weather is a bit more clement, so it's more welcoming that way.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of possibilities in those, in those warm areas where we can build something. But the idea is that we want the nation to offer the land, because it needs to be given extraterritoriality.
Yep.
So the nation government has to provide that. So that's a requirement. It doesn't matter what the weather is. If we don't have that criteria satisfied, then we just can't build the embassy. It's supposed to be an actual real embassy that functions as an embassy according to international law, right?
Right.
So that's one of the hurdles, and the other hurdle is the size of the land. This is a kind of a special type of embassy, and there's security concerns and all sorts of concerns around it. So the chunk of land is about 4 square kilometers that's required, which means that there would be basically a kilometer. Every wall would be a kilometer away from the structure itself. So that's, I mean, for some nations, it's not a big issue, because some nations have lots of spare land. Mm-hmm. Mexico, US, but Japan probably would have a hard time justifying that.
Yeah.
Because population densities and mountains everywhere creates challenges. So those are little things like that are considerations. But we don't think that ET is going to be very, very picky, because it's again, the idea is to build it is really for us. It's not for them. It's really for us to demonstrate that we can do it together, and that we kind of accept the idea and we're kind of ready. And I like to create the analogy with Star Trek and the Prime Directive, and how the Enterprise arrives at a civilization only when they're ready. Otherwise, they're kind of watching, and they're being careful, because people are going to freak out, and they already have pretty important weapon systems at that stage, and they can hurt each other. So we're the primitives in this case.
Yeah. Has any country put their hand up to offer you land?
Two.
Are you prepared to name?
I don't know which ones they are myself, and I don't ask. Only 2 people in the organization know, and they keep it to themselves. Yeah. It's for to avoid leaks.
Yep. What about the structure itself? I mean, we're getting a look at it behind you at the moment, but I mean, what? Yeah, is it a closed structure, or does it have like an open section, and is it going to be? I mean, the other thing I guess was going through my mind is, what if ET needs some special requirements to be able to be down here?
Yeah. Well, if you look at behind me, you got 2 spheres on the, I think it's your left, maybe.
Yep.
Right. That's like an entrance, and then a conference area. So those are humans and aliens, can go into those spaces. and the whole donut, and the whole donut is like it's pressurized.
Right.
Because the assumption is that they'll, like, if they have special requirements, they'll bring it with them. If the structure is pressurized with airlocks, then they can adapt the environment to whatever they want. Like because we don't know. But this is living quarters for X number of people. I forget the exact number. I think 12 or something little quarters. And there's a pool. I mean, we're making the assumption maybe they can breathe our oxygen, but we don't know.
Yeah.
Or at least they can walk around with some kind of a mask or whatever they need. Like we don't know what the atmospheric requirements, but they have the technology to actually deal with that. Earth is like for organic beings, Earth is pretty mild. I mean, it's not like going to Venus, which is very harsh for any kind of organic person.
Right.
So they'll manage it, but it is designed to have that clear airlock cut, and human beings are not allowed beyond that, and it's kept aseptic and devoid of viruses and bacteria. So that's why you kind of leave it alone.
Yeah. I want to get back to I guess the topic of malevolence. It has crossed my mind if you're successful in attracting an ET race or several ET races to make contact with you, and then they want to set up a time to come and meet you at the embassy. It suddenly crossed my mind. I mean, countries like the US, Russia, China are very guarded about their own particular knowledge and secrets. Do you envisage that they could give you trouble? I mean, could they just kind of form their own alliance and come in and say, "Listen, we're taking over," much as what we saw in the movie? Gosh, it's slipped my mind. The Day the Earth stood still. No, The Day the Earth stood still.
When, right. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and the ET wanted to come and talk to our scientists, but our governments wanted to talk to ET.
Yeah. That's something we try to not consider so much because it gets really complicated. And you're right, the malevolence we expect is not from the ETs. Because if you have malevolent civilizations out there, it's not building an embassy here is not an announcement, come here. I mean, they can come here at any point in time. Like they've been here if they have, like, already. It's building an embassy is not a single, okay, now come here, do your worst. No, they can do it at any point in time, and we would be powerless to protect ourselves against it. We may not even see malevolence the way we see them, but I'm much more concerned, like to your point, of other nations, developing some concerns or jealousy or and having some infighting among us. And you mentioned some countries, could be other countries, right? Let's say the embassy is built in Samoa, just picking random nation, pretty isolated island, I know. But then the Chinese Navy arrives and kind of creates a blockade around it. Well, like the alliance is not won't have anything to do with that, and we wouldn't be able to do anything. But the island of Samoa has governance, and there's going to be definitely political upheaval and some conflict that happens through that. And I suspect an advanced civ that is watching us like they're watching cable TV, when they do come here, they're probably going to come having made a risk assessment, hopefully, for themselves, but also for us. It's like, if we do this, what'll happen? Kind of creating these scenarios and these simulations, and they're way more advanced quantum computers or whatever they have. It's like, okay, like if we do this now, we're going to cause more trouble. Let's wait a couple of years. That's the assumption. I don't know what they'll do, and we'll have to manage the situation that we create to ourselves when it comes. Really.
Yeah. I was reading an article on your site. It really kind of resonated with me, and it basically said, it is high time that we stop giving UFOs more attention than their occupants and start focusing on and questioning their real intentions. And then you reel off a number of questions like, what do they want? Why are they appearing more frequently in our skies? Do the crop circles they're responsible for contain underlying messages for humanity? And since there is currently no safe place on Earth for them to land, are they trying to tell us something? I mean, they're all legitimate questions.
Yeah, they are, and they're unanswered.
Yeah,
we don't really know unless we ask them and get actually a straight answer. I mean, some groups like the IRM, using them as an example because it's one of the founding members, and I'll mention others. Like that organization, believes that there's really only one that's trying to contact us, only one civilization, and they were the ones that created life here. They're like scientists that created life, and their reason to contact us is because they want to reconnect with their progeny in a way, or their creation.
Yep.
And so that makes sense. Other groups are more seeing a little bit more generally. It's like, well, there are good ones and there are bad ones in civilization, and they're interested in us, maybe curious. They're kind of watching us to see if we're going to become peaceful enough to meet. And that's more of a general kind of curiosity type of motivation. For in all the groups that I've spoken with, that's the more prominent one. And doing the analysis, like I described before, like why would somebody come here from another civilization? There is no other reason except for curiosity. If there's a grandiose, like a grander than us type of philosophy, like maybe the universe and life in the conscious life in the universe is part of a kind of a recycling system, and then so each civilization becomes kind of a cog in a machine.
Yep.
Like I wouldn't know that, but why not? And that would be a reason. Like we need to bring them into the fold because it's part of a greater scheme, like at a galactic scale or universal scale. Sure, I would suspect the simplest answer is probably the right one.
Yeah.
Which is logically like it's not about resources or like the more consumerism kind of reasons, because they're beyond that because of logic. It's really more curiosity, or there is some kind of emotional attachment in the case where they may have created us genetically.
Yeah.
Then there's a bit of emotional attachment to that, and kind of like a wishful thinking for us to mature enough so that they can have more direct conversations. And I'm romantic. I like that idea.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we won't know.
Yeah. Is there a timeline to have the embassy built? And if there is, are you on target?
So far, we are. The timeline is well on the website. There's a timeline, so people watching can definitely look into that. And the opening of the embassy should be around 2030. There's complexities not in the building, but the approvals and all that stuff from here and then. And there's always feasibility studies, all sorts of stuff that are related to development, really, that take a while. But it should be around 2030. So less than 10 years from now, it should be entirely built and open for business. Doesn't mean that the next day an ET civilization arrives, though. It just means that it's going to be there and available and to visit and to take a look at and to officially operational. So that's the timeline.
Yeah. All right. So if people want to know more, they can visit your website.
Yeah, the website is Alliance for, like the number 4, et.org. So Alliance for Extraterrestrial Diplomatic Contact is the name of the organization. And please contact us if you have interests, you want to join the team, you want to support, whatever. This is a civilization project, if you would.
Yep.
So you're Dean, you're also welcome with us as well, of course.
Yep. Sylvain, before you go, I just wanted to talk about you and your work too. You describe yourself, among other things, as a futurist. And I mean, the world, let's not mince words, at the moment is in a mess. It seems the one world movement is gathering speed under the guise of climate control. There are things happening in the United States at the moment that we could never have envisaged happening, even 10 years ago. And everything seems on the brink of total collapse. I mean, can we survive the next 100 years without ET's help?
The answer is yes. but there's a definite challenge. Again, I'm a futurist. This is more of a professional kind of rational thinking kind of exercise. We are, to describe it simply, just like hundreds of years ago, when we were nomads, right? Like a tribal nomads at the time. And then we went from being nomad to sedentary civilizations and started farming, right? That changed huge amounts of stuff in our culture and how we did. Like, we started having lords and have armies, and like it changed everything. We're at a moment similar to that. We're moving from industrialization, commercial and consumerism, and crossing the gap because of AI and computing. Mostly, it's a lot about AI, it's our artificial intelligence, from like we're a machine to develop, to produce and consume, to a civilization that would be designed strictly to consume. And then AI and robots are actually taking care of everything else.
Right.
And that has a lot of implications, but that's the destination that I give 1 hour talks just to describe why this is it. So I won't do this here.
Right.
But it's a seminal moment where we're changing how we need to think and how we live. Because, like you said, like right now, everything is kind of collapsing. The economy, the way we work in economy and governance is collapsing. The environment is a mess. All our fault. But we're on the cusp of, if we are able to change how we think and we convert the energies we put in now into a different ideology where everybody can get basics, because actually there's an abundance of resources now because of our tech. Then we can kind of convert to what we've always anticipated many years ago, a leisure-based economy. That was a term that was used when I was young, which was like 35 years ago or something, when I was in high school.
Right.
But it's a huge change. And we can do that change within the next 15 years, which is basically the timeline that we have allotted to us. Beyond that is going to be, we think now we're in a crisis. No,
Right.
the crisis is coming. Okay.
Yeah.
So we need to do that, to make that leap of ideology and shifting how we use technology. And we can certainly do it. If an ET arrives, let's say 2031, whatever, right? Civilization that has gone through some of those hurdles in the past, I'm sure we're going to be able to cross that gap sooner.
Yeah.
Because that's going to blow people's minds in itself, and it's going to open up to a lot of possibilities and so on, and we're going to learn a lot. But I don't believe we need that to actually make the change. We just need to kind of have some hurt, have some motivation to make a change, make some changes, and then we can see the light at the end of the tunnel and understand where we're heading. Right now, it's all nebulous. The future is scary to the young people and everybody because we don't know where we're going. We've never been here before. Just like when we were nomads and we learned about farming technologies, like they didn't know, like the society was getting destroyed, they thought at the time as well.
Yeah. And I've heard you mention before that you're confident that we can engineer a paradise right here. What do you mean by that? A paradise?
Yeah. Of course, paradise is a concept. It's not. I don't consider it the same as utopia, right? Paradise, in the sense, like a world where we don't need to worry about basics of like survival. And we get, it's a leisure-based economy, if you would, where your main concern when you wake up in the morning is not whether or not you're going to have enough money or food or lodging. It's, what am I going to do today to have fun, to enjoy my life, or to feel good? And that's what we can engineer. And I published a book in 2018 that is entitled that, Engineering Paradise, Are You Ready? Because we have the technology and the infrastructure in most of the world, not everybody, everywhere, to actually to support this new type of economy. And Africa, Southeast Asia, some other nations that are second world or third world can leap very quickly forward to that same level of economy if we allow them to. and right now they're held back because of the consumerism type of economy we have, where the dominating kind of keep the others a bit. But this new philosophy that I think we should adopt of abundance, there's enough for everybody, and we should collaborate and share. That new mentality would elevate all these nations to a similar level without fear of competition or aggression or anything like that. So that's what I'm seeing, and that's why I'm talking about engineering a paradise.
Do you think that new mentality could be the watershed moment that finally draws ET to step out of the shadows and say, "Okay, you're ready, and we want to talk to you"?
I think they're one and the same. Yeah. It's that I think we need as a planet this thought shift, and there's a book called The Tipping Point, and there's other ideas about that, where it seems like it's all nuts and then all of a sudden, like ideas kind of shift very, very quickly. I think we're on the cusp of that, but yeah, like once we make that shift, where common individuals, like not the elites, just like anybody accepts, like, okay, I'm going to talk to my neighbor, I'm going to share with them because that's okay, it's going to help me, and they kind of change their minds about how they live. I think that's when ET are saying they're waiting for that. It's like, okay, now they're not in the competitive mindset with nations and neighbors. They're in collaborative mindset where the resources of the planet are all meant to be shared. And it also speaks a lot to the environmental movement and how we're going to fix the environment. We're all sharing the same environment. Fires in California are fires here where I am. Mm-hmm. Even though the actual flames are not here, we're sharing the same air, the same soil and water. So I think there's that shift, and if we shift our minds to a more collaborative, then we'll be seeing the planet collectively as part of our collective, with gives and takes. And I think we're going to be able to very quickly resolve environmental issues together.
Okay. Well, Sylvain, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you today, and we'd love to have you back at some stage in the future when things progress a little more. But thanks for joining us, and it's been a very interesting talk.
Well, thank you, Dean. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. That's Sylvain Rochon, who's VP of Network Development of the Alliance of Extraterrestrial Diplomatic Contact, joining us today.